بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد المعقل الخامس عشر رد مشكله إلى أهله. So returning when there's an issue of dispute or conflict or something you don't understand correctly, you return it to the people of knowledge. Like go to them and ask them before it's too late. And this can be from the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't understand. So some of the scholars or mufassirun, they say that it means that they were telling to ask the people of the book, but a lot of scholars in the future generations, they say that's the people of knowledge. If you have an issue, a question, the people of the Quran, the people of ilm, go back to them to request to explanation. فالمعدم للعلم يعول على دحاقة وجهابذة من أهل لحل مشكلاته. So the smart people who respect knowledge, when there's an issue for questions, they go back to those who have the most knowledge to ask them the question, to understand. ولا يعرض نفسه لما لا تطيق خوفا من القول على الله بلا علم والافتراء على الدين فهو يخاف سخط الرحمن قبل أن يخاف صوت السلطان. And he doesn't put upon himself something that he's not able to do or incapable of doing. Like if you don't have the proper tools, the proper knowledge, you can't go and try to answer the questions for yourself. Like you always go back to the scholars to understand, to get explanation, right? And that's fearing that you will say something about Allah that you have no knowledge of. And that's one of the greatest of sins. So if you don't understand something in the deen, even from the dunya, you go back to the people you can trust from the scholars to ask the question. And the people who have respect for knowledge, they fear displeasing Allah more than they fear the whip of the sultan. You know, like it's if you say something, you speak about Allah without knowledge, it's one of the greatest of sins. So it's better to remain silent and go and ask those who know before you fall into the sin. فإن العلماء بعلم تكلموا وبصر نافذة سكتوا فإن تكلموا في مشكل فتكلم بكلامهم وإن سكتوا عنه فليسعك ما وسعهم. And he said that the scholars, when they speak with knowledge, right? And if they're quiet, they're doing that out of knowledge as well. So if they speak with knowledge, and if they're quiet, they're being quiet because of knowledge. And if there's something that they spoke about, you can take from that, and if there's something they were silent about, you should be quiet as well. Like certain issues, only the great scholars can answer that. Right? It's not for us or for the layman or any person to go and try to answer these type of questions or try to get involved in something that's way beyond our scope. So respecting knowledge means following the ways of the ulama. If they talked about something, we take from them. If they are quiet about something, we don't try to, go and make our own ijtihad. ومن أدق المشكلات الفتن الواقعة ونوازل الحادثة التي تتكاثر مع الامتداد الزمن والناس في هذا الباب طرفان. So he said from the most widespread problems we see in terms of this issue is when fitan comes or new issues come, right? So most of the stuff we need for our deen and the questions we need have been answered for us in the books. But when a fitna comes, like something new happens, something bad happened, or some new type of issue that was never around before comes, that's when it's the most important to go back to the scholars to ask. Fitna, it comes from originally, you know what fitna means? What's fitna? Yeah, it's there's one definition there, something like from outside, like it's like it could be a form of bid'ah innovation, but in general fitna means like tribulation or test or trial, right? That's what we know. When a fitna comes, it's like a test for us, a tribulation. But it comes from the word from like meaning to be also beautified, like they would call a woman, fattana. She's a trial for other men because she's so beautiful, for example. So fitna, sometimes the nature of fitna, like people, when something, usually you're quiet and everything, but if something big happens, an accident happens, or some celebrity, something happened to them, you see people, they always rush to the fitna because it's attractive. Like they want to start talking about it. So the scholar, this imam, he's telling us when the fitna comes, or nawazil, which is something like a new issue comes, be silent, don't get involved, don't jump to that. Go and ask the scholars about it before you get destroyed. Because sometimes, like the people now, we're so geared with social media and like the TV and all these type of things. When fitna happens, it's like something we want to listen to it and find out, oh, what's going on. And you call your friends and tell them, oh, did you hear this happened? And then if we're spreading more fitna instead of solving the problem. So the scholars, they say, like, when fitna comes or a new issue comes that you haven't had before, like now we have this technology we never had before, there's certain operations you can do we never had before, all these issues are new. So the scholars saying, when these things happen, go back and ask the great scholars for clarification, because they'd have the knowledge from the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet to give you the right guidance. So stay away from delving into fitna, especially if you don't have knowledge. Sometimes we find that people, they don't have much knowledge, they talk the most, and they get in trouble because they spread rumors, they spread these type of problematic issues without having the proper base for it. So he's warning us, when this happens, be careful to go to the scholars. He's saying when this happens, there's two categories of people. Wasatun, people that go to one extreme and another extreme. One extreme is أرادوا عن استفتاء العلماء فيها وفزعوا إلى أهواء والآراء يستمدونها من الهيجان الخطباء ورقة الشعراء وتحليلات السياسيون وإرجافات المنافقين. So one group of people, when they hear these new fitnas or issues, they will turn away from asking the scholars. They don't want to ask the scholar for knowledge. They want to follow their desires, right? And they want to follow the people of the opinions of the people that don't really have proper knowledge, like political commentators or media, social media people, or even he's saying sometimes hypocrites. They'd rather follow the desires and get a true answer for the issue. So that's one group. The other group, وقوم يعرضونها على العلماء لكنهم لا يرتدون قولهم ولا يرضون مقالهم فكأنهم طلبوا جوابا يوافق أهواء في نفوسهم فلما لم يجدوه مالوا عنهم. So another group of people, they'll go and ask the scholars, and if the scholar agrees with their opinion, okay, that's good. But if the scholar doesn't agree with their opinion, they don't follow his advice, they turn away from him. So they're like looking for, we call it fatwa shopping. Excuses, yeah. So you go and, some people they'll go and ask, a scholar, ask a scholar until they find the answer they want, and then they'll follow it. So they're not really trying to find the truth, they're just trying to find a way to follow their desires. Yeah. So one has to be careful to fall in that category. والناجون من نار الفتن السالمون من وهج المحن هم من فزع إلى علماء ولازم قولهم. And the ones who escape this fitna, this trial, this tribulation, the hellfire, are the ones who, when this thing comes, they go to the scholars and ask them, and follow their statements before getting involved. This is the one that will be successful. وإن اشتبه عليه شيء من قولهم أحسن الظن بهم فطرح قوله وأخذ بقولهم فالتجربة والخبرة هم كانوا أحق بها وأهلها وإذا اختلفت أقوالهم لزم قول جمهورهم وسوادهم إيثارا للسلامة والسلامة لا يعدلها شيء. So sometimes he'll find, if there's a difference amongst the scholars, to go with the ones that have the majority opinion, right? So sometimes you might find two different opinions. One scholar says you can do this, and 100 scholars say no, you shouldn't do that. So the Imam is saying to be salama, have peace of heart and peace of mind, follow the jumhur, follow the ones that are most, like if 100, and same thing in medicine, like a common example, if 100 doctors tell you this is the right medicine to take, and one doctor says no, it's this one, you'll feel more comfortable sticking with the 100 doctors than that one doctor, right? So he's saying in ilm, when there's a difference amongst the scholars, follow like the ones that are the majority. That's usually the correct opinion. وما أحسن قول ابن عاصم في مرتقى الوصول وواجب في مشكلات الفهم تحسيننا الظن بأهل العلم. He's saying a poem basically when also sometimes you see scholars differing with each other, have good thoughts about them. Like don't gossip about them, don't cause fights between them, respect them both, because they're both trying to do ijtihad for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have husn al-dhan, which means assuming the best of them, not trying to have backbiting or slander. Like if the scholars dispute, they're on a high level, we're not at that level, so we shouldn't criticize, we shouldn't get involved. Let them talk it out, and inshallah you as a layperson, you try to follow the one that has the closest to the truth. ومن جملة المشكلات رد زلات العلماء والمقالات الباطلة لأهل البدعة والمخالفين فإنما يتكلم فيها العلماء الراسخون كما بينه الشاطبي في الموافقات وابن رجم في جامع العلوم والحكم. Also from the issues like that we don't get involved too much in is not being letting the scholars refute those who need to be refuted. For example, people of innovation, or people of deviation, or people that are causing corruption upon the earth. It's usually the scholars that have the job of refuting them because they have the proper knowledge. Sometimes a person, they don't have the correct knowledge and they want good, but they're not able to refute that person. They might cause a bigger harm than good. So leave it to the scholars to take care of refuting, and it's not for us laymen to talk about other people, other scholars. وإذا تعرضت الناشية والدهماء للدخول في هذا الباب تولدت فتن وبلايا كما هو مشاهد في عصرنا، فإنما نشأت كثير من الفتن حين تعرض للرد على زلات العلماء والمقالات المخالفة للشريعة بعد الناشية الأغمار والجادة السالمة عرضها على العلماء الراسخين والاستمساك بقولهم فيها. And he's saying, like, a lot of the fitna that we see today is because people are talking about issues they shouldn't be talking about, trying to refute people they shouldn't be refuting, and not letting the scholars do their jobs. So we find in many times the fitna happens when people speak without knowledge. And that's from the great sins. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us in the Quran in many ayat not to speak without knowledge. If you can remember the first hadith we started a long time ago in the book Ad-Da'wa Dawa, remember what happened? You two were the ones that were here, only ones. The guy died. Yes. Yeah. قاتلوه قاتلهم الله. So basically this man, he went to ask some other companions about, he had a head wound, is it okay if I make tayammum instead of washing? And they said, no, there's water available, you have to wash. So he washed and he ended up getting sick and he died from that. And when the Prophet heard about that, he said, قاتلوه قاتلهم الله, they killed him, may Allah punish them as well or take care of them. So because they answered the question without knowledge, they ended up killing him. So it's very dangerous to speak without knowledge. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the cure for the ignorance is the question. If you don't know something, go and ask those who know. Right? فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. In terms of like a hadith demonstrating how even the Sahaba, when issues came about, when the Prophet ﷺ was passed away, rahimahullah, they would go and ask the most knowledgeable from the scholars. So there's an instance with Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhuma. Do you guys know that hadith or that narration? So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he was walking past the masjid and he saw a group of people with like the stones saying, counting subhanallah, and then everybody says subhanallah alhamdulillah 100 times, and then rocks with the counting of the rocks, Allahu Akbar 100 times, but they're counting in a group together. So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he never seen this before. He went to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who he saw as a greater scholar, and asked him, like, I saw something I haven't witnessed before, but I think it's something good. And then Abdullah ibn Mas'ud asked him, what is it? And he said, you can see for yourself. So he took him to the group and he saw them, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud got very upset, saying, you come with something new to the religion. Either you came with something better than the Prophet ﷺ, or something new, or you've basically gone astray. The Prophet didn't do this, right? So the scholars use this hadith or this narration to show how Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, who is a scholar himself, when he didn't know something, he went to ask somebody who's more knowledgeable than him. That's the example for us. When we don't know something, we go back to the scholars and ask before you act upon it. So Abu Musa said, it looks good, it's something interesting. They're saying subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. It sounds something good. But the way they were doing it was not good. So he went to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and he clarified for him, this is not the way to do it. So the Sahaba amongst themselves, when they had issues, they would go and clarify for the most knowledgeable of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَالْإِثْمَ وَالْبَغْيَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ وَأَن تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يَنزِلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah says, from the greatest of sins is to speak about Allah, about those things you don't know. And تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ولا تقولوا لما تصف ألسنتكم الكذب هذا حلال وهذا حرام. Don't make up with your tongue saying something is halal and something is haram. Right? This is from the great sins. فمن أظلم ممن افترى الله كذبا ليضل الناس بغير علم. Who is more unjust than the one who lies about Allah, makes something up about Allah without knowledge. So when you say something is from Allah or from the Prophet, from the Quran or from the Sunnah, and you don't know about it, or you say something's halal or haram and you don't know about it, Allah is equating it with like shirk or kufr, one of the great sins. So always be careful, like don't say something is haram or halal until you're 100% sure, right? You find so many people, they tell you easily halal, haram, or this is okay, this is not okay, and they have no idea from the proofs, they don't know if it's right. So be careful about saying that. The Prophet ﷺ himself, he told us, whoever lies about him intentionally will have his place in the hellfire. Also from the statements of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, like Umar or Abu Bakr and many of the other scholars, they would say like, what earth would give me shelter, or what shade will cover me if I was to speak about the Quran with my opinion. This is like Abu Bakr and Umar, who are the great scholars of Islam. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu used to say, Abdullah ibn Abbas used to say that all that there is to follow and obey is the book of Allah and the sunnah of His messenger. Whoever makes any statement after these two according to his own opinion, then I do not know if you'll find among his good deeds or bad deeds. So you might say something that's not from the Quran or Sunnah, and you don't know if you're right or wrong, and you can get actually sins for it. And Ibn Khattab used to say, be careful of using your opinion in the religious affairs. Right? Yes.
I heard something, I don't know.
Ikhtilaf al-mu'tabar, which is like the considered ikhtilaf, is based upon evidences and different interpretation of the evidences, which is, fine. The ikhtilaf that's like you're talking about is when there are people are issuing statements without knowledge and causing fitna. That's something that's not permissible. But there's certain amount of, in the usul al-din, there's not too much differences. Like it's not that great of a differences. It's just the interpretations of certain ahadith, or the consideration of the authenticity of the hadith, for example.
There's a hadith that said Allah put the rahmah on the differences, right? Opinions and
Yeah, that's not a correct hadith. No. Yeah.
It's a weak or?
It's weak, yeah. Because Allah says like, لا يزال المختلفون إلا من رحم ربك. That in Surah Al-Hud, the end surah, that they will continue to differ amongst each other except that those who Allah has mercy upon. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, who we were just talking about, he said about this ayah, interpreting from it, الاختلاف شر, differing is evil. So in general, differences are not preferred, but if there is like different interpretations or different valid proofs for each of them, it's okay. It's something that you shouldn't make inkar about. Like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the Prophet ﷺ told them, don't pray until you reach Bani Qurayza, right? And half of the Sahaba, they interpret that hadith meaning that means rush, hurry up to get there fast, but you pray on time. Like the normal thing is to pray Asr on time. So they stopped and prayed Asr. The other half took it literally and said, no, we shouldn't pray until we get to Bani Qurayza. So they continued on the journey and they prayed when they got there. Right? But they never blamed each other, they never criticized each other, they didn't say you're right, you're wrong. It was a valid interpretation, both were valid interpretations. So that type, it's okay, and you shouldn't refute or get in arguments over that, right? But if something's clear, obviously, there's no room for argument. Like you say alcohol is haram. If somebody's drinking, you can't find the excuse unless they're in the desert or something like that. They're about to die from thirst. But in general, if you're out in the public and somebody's drinking, it's clearly haram. There's no difference of opinion.
It actually dehydrates you, so.
It does, huh? Yeah, I mean, it's talking about when the issues, there's no clear-cut evidence, so they remain silent because they're not sure. Or sometimes there's fitna between two parties, and the scholars will remain quiet as is not to encourage the fitna more, So, yeah, any scholars, if they reach a level of scholarship, they deserve our respect. And some of them do it for other reasons, like they could, fear for their life, they could fear their family's life, they could fear it to cause more of a fitna, right? So, it's good though, and also the vice versa, like you'll find some people saying, oh, why are they speaking out, they shouldn't speak out, but No, some scholars interpret it as their duty if they see a munkar, an evil, that they should speak out and correct it, right? No matter who it is. And that's their opinion, and we can respect that opinion. And other scholars say like, oh no, you should advise in silent, and you should be in private advising and stuff like that. That's also opinion too. So it depends on which one you follow. But you don't. The issue he's talking about is when there's like, it's not clear cut issue, and there's no clear cut evidence. So some scholars will be scared to answer the question. Like Ibn Abi Layla, he said he met 170 of the Sahaba, and all of them were scared to narrate a hadith or give him a fatwa. And these were all Sahaba. And there's many like narrations of Imam Malik. He was asked like I think 40 something questions. He only answered 4 or something like that of the 40, right? About 10%. And he's Imam Malik, the madhab leader. So it's not, like they say that when you say la a'lamu is also a fatwa. Like you're saying I don't know. That's a good way to answer a question. When you don't know something, keep silent. So the main issue is saying like if a great scholar of repute and knowledge and he's quiet about the issue, it's not for us to go and start speaking about it and trying to get into it. So he's saying that's why if it's they're quiet about certain things, sometimes it's better for us to be quiet too. Sometimes it's not clear yet, so you just stay silent until things get clear. The tendency of a lot of, especially the younger ones, is when some issue comes up, they want to jump on it and talk about it and give fatawa, and it's not been clarified yet by the scholars. So sometimes it's better to just be patient, see what they say, and then follow them in their knowledge. So what we should learn from this lesson is that you can verify, first and foremost, if who the scholar is and if he actually said it. Because a lot of times people will misquote or misinterpret what a scholar is actually saying. So one of the lessons we can draw from this is tatabbut, which means like not following the follow up and confirming and making sure, right? Because I've seen it my own eyes many times, people misquoting,
Is it follow up the evidence?
tatabbut? Yeah, or like confirming, basically making sure, bringing hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqeen, bring your proofs if you are of the truthful. So a lot of times, like I said, many people will quote scholars, misquote scholars, and the scholar said nothing like it. He misheard him, or he misunderstood him, or he heard something from somebody else and he spread it. And that's how fitna happens. So first, like ask him who said it, and then find out if he really did say it. Then you can talk about it. Yeah, I mean it's unfortunately prevalent, throughout the world almost now, but it just like you say, did it really come from the permission or the fatwa of ulama, or just the government started doing that? That's the difference. Like, because reputable scholar will say that it's permissible to deal with riba.
Because I know it's like a clear.
It's clear cut. Yeah, it's very clear cut. So you might see, maybe they said there's a certain contract that you can do that avoids the actual interest and does it like in a, it's called taqseed, for example, splitting up the payments, increasing the price and splitting up the payments. So
would that be okay?
yeah, that's fine. If you have a fixed price, you agree upon it, and there's no like percentage related, that's fine. Like say, if you buy this car from me today, I'll sell it to you for 10,000, or you can just you can buy the car and pay me 1,000 a month for 12 months and give me 12,000. That's fine. But you can't say, I'll sell you this car for 10,000, plus 2% interest that you pay me until the loan is paid back on that, for example. It's variable, and it's and you've stipulated interest in the contract, so it's different. But so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe a scholar was trying to explain it in a certain way that it's permissible to do such and such, and then a person said, "Oh, he's saying that riba is halal." That's a big difference. So just to make sure,
When you